Thunder crashed across the dark city sky. Rain fell like a curtain, drowning the streets in silver. In the middle of the road, a girl in a torn white dress screamed. Why didn't anyone stop? She collapsed to her knees, trembling, her birthday crown rolling away into a puddle. The mansion lights glowed faintly behind her, distant, golden, and cruel. Cars rushed past, drivers stared but never slowed. Everyone saw her pain, but no one cared enough to reach for her. That girl was Alina Warren, the only daughter of billionaire, businessman Richard Warren. To the world, she was perfect, beauty, money, fame. But inside, she was breaking. Ever since her mother's death, her father had buried himself in work and forgotten she existed. His love had been replaced with assistants, parties, and cold dinners at a long, empty table. Earlier that night had been her 16th birthday. Hundreds of guests arrived, music thundered, cameras flashed. But her father, he was locked in his office, too busy to wish her even a happy birthday. She smiled through tears until the lights blurred, then ran out of the mansion barefoot, crying, not knowing where she was going. Now she sat in the storm, soaked, mascara mixing with the rain, clutching her knees like a child. Why does no one ever see me? She whispered, voice lost in thunder. Then dashed footsteps. From the shadows emerged a boy, barefoot, clothes torn, maybe 16, maybe younger. His dark skin glistened under the rain, and in his trembling hands he carried something a thin, wet blanket. He stopped a few feet away, unsure if he should approach. The world had taught him not to go near rich people. But her sobs broke that fear. Slowly, he stepped closer and draped the blanket over her shoulders. Alina lifted her head in shock. The boy's eyes were kind but tired, his lips pale from the cold. Don't cry, he said softly. I know how cold loneliness feels. For the first time, someone's words didn't sound like pity. They sounded like truth. She looked at him, speechless. Who are you? She whispered. The boy shrugged. Just someone who doesn't like seeing people cry. A single tear escaped her eye, mixing with the rain. No one had ever said something so simple, yet so real. The thunder eased into a drizzle. The blanket on her shoulders smelled like earth and smoke, rough but warm. She didn't know his name. He didn't know she was a billionaire's daughter. But in that fleeting moment, under a dying rain, two worlds quietly collided, and neither of them knew that this one act of kindness would change their lives forever. Morning broke with the faint cry of crows and the smell of damp streets. The rain had stopped, but the world still glistened with its memory. Alina woke up under a half-broken bridge, wrapped in the same thin blanket that had covered her through the night. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it hit her, the storm, her father's anger, the boy. She sat up quickly, looking around. There he was, sitting a few feet away, squatting beside a little metal can, blowing gently on a flickering flame. He was trying to keep it alive, feeding it with paper scraps. The boy turned when he heard her move and smiled shyly. Good morning, he said, his voice quiet but warm. You slept through the thunder. That's rare for people around here. Alina blinked, confused. Around here? He nodded toward the street beyond the bridge. Yeah, people usually stay awake. Too noisy, too cold. She looked down and noticed his bare feet cracked, muddy, and bleeding in small places. His jeans were ripped at the knee, his shirt too thin for the cold. Yet his eyes carried a calmness she had never seen in any of her father's guests, peace built on surviving. Not showing off. What's your name? She asked softly. Malik, he replied, poking the fire. What about you? Elle. She hesitated, then said, Ellie? She wasn't ready to tell him who she really was. Not yet. He nodded and smiled again. Nice name. You hungry, Ellie? She didn't answer, but her stomach growled for her. He chuckled, reached into a small plastic bag and pulled out a piece of stale bread and a half-eaten apple. Here, he said. It's not much, but it's clean. She looked at the food. It was old, soaked a little from the rain. Yet it was offered with sincerity. Slowly, she took it, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. "No need to thank me. Just share what I have. It's the rule of the streets." They sat in silence for a while, the city slowly waking up around them. She watched him polish an old pair of shoes someone had thrown away. The way he worked, careful, patient, respectful, fascinated her. "Why do you live here?" she asked suddenly. He didn't stop polishing. "My parents died when I was 9. My uncle said he'd take care of me, but he left, so I stayed here. I polish shoes during the day, and at night I sleep under this bridge. It's not much, but it's home." His voice carried no bitterness, just acceptance. That broke something inside her. She thought of her mansion, the silk sheets, the chandeliers, and how none of it ever felt like home. Malik noticed her silence. "You look like someone who's run away," he said carefully. Elena's eyes widened. "How did you know?" He smiled faintly. "People who run away have a certain look in their eyes. It's like they're searching for something they already had but lost." She lowered her gaze, unable to speak. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her, truly seen her. And under that gray morning sky, the poor boy who owned nothing, she felt something she had never felt before. Peace. Little did she know, the world was already searching for her. The day passed slowly, soaked in the hum of traffic above and the whisper of water below the bridge. Alina watched Malik move through the small corner he called home, a stack of boxes. It's a few old tins and a half-broken chair he had rescued from the trash. Wasn't much, but he treated every piece like treasure. "Do you always live here?" she asked as he folded a cardboard sheet into a dry spot for her to sit. He nodded. "Yeah, me and a few others sometimes. Most people come and go, but this bridge, it doesn't leave anyone." Alina smiled faintly at the way he spoke, simple but filled with meaning. Her eyes wandered toward the city skyline in the distance. The tallest building glowed faintly against the afternoon clouds. It was her father's company tower. She felt a tightness in her chest. "That building," as she said softly. "Do you know who owns it?" Malik squinted. "Some billionaire, right? I heard he makes cars or something." Alina lowered her gaze. "Yeah, he makes people too busy to love." Malik looked at her strangely, sensing her pain but not prying. He offered her a small metal cup of tea. It was barely warm and tasted mostly of rust, but to her it felt like kindness in liquid form. As the sky dimmed, the two of them talked. Malik told her about the city streets, the kids who begged, the old man who played guitar near the bus stop for coins. Spoke about how he wanted to build a little place one day, not for himself but for kids with no one else. "I'll call it the warm corner," he said, eyes shining. "A place where no kid has to sleep in the rain." Elena's heart softened. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But how will you do it?" He smiled. "One shoe at a time. Every coin I save, I keep a part of it for that dream." She looked at him, this boy with nothing, dreaming so big and felt small in comparison. She had everything, yet never dreamed beyond herself. The sound of rain began again, gentle this time, like the sky wanted to listen. Malik quickly pulled a piece of tarp over the small area and adjusted the blanket over her shoulders. "Get cold," he said. "What about you?" "I'm used to it." She wanted to argue, but his tone carried quiet strength. They sat close as thunder rolled softly above. She could hear the faint beat of his heart between raindrops, steady. Calm. After a long silence, she finally asked Malik, "Aren't you ever angry about your life?" He thought for a moment. "I used to be, but anger doesn't keep you warm. Hope does." The simplicity of his answer stung her heart. She turned away so he wouldn't see her tears. He looked at her, gently. "You know, Ellie, people like you don't end up under bridges. We'll be fine." She smiled sadly. "You'd be surprised." The rain deepened. The fire in the tin can flickered and went out. Malik lay on the ground, arms crossed, eyes to the ceiling of concrete above. Alina hesitated, then lay beside. Him wrapping the old blanket around them both, she whispered, "Thank you for being kind." He answered, half asleep, "It's nothing. Kindness doesn't cost anything." As the night deepened, Alina stared into the darkness. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Under that bridge, in the heart of a forgotten city, a poor boy with no shoes gave a billionaire's daughter what money could never buy: warmth, peace, and a reason to believe in people. Again, neither of them knew that by morning the world above them would turn against him. Morning sunlight crept through the cracks of the bridge, landing softly on Elena's face. She opened her eyes, smiling faintly as she saw Malik still asleep beside her. For the first time in her life, she felt safe, not because of walls or guards, but because of trust. But that peace shattered with the sound of sirens. Dozens of footsteps echoed from above, followed by shouting voices. Before Malik could even stand, policemen flooded under the bridge. Their flashlights cut through the shadows like swords. "There she is," one officer yelled. "It's a billionaire's daughter." Alina froze. Malik looked at her in confusion. "Billionaires. A daughter," he repeated softly. Before she could explain, two officers grabbed Malik by the arms. "You're under arrest for kidnapping," one barked. "No, stop," Alina cried, rushing forward. "He didn't kidnap me. He helped me. Please listen." But no one listened. The officers ignored her words, focused only on the frightened boy. Malik didn't fight back. He simply stood there, silent, rainwater dripping from his hair. Alina tried to break free from the guards who pulled her back toward a waiting car. "Dad!" she shouted as her father appeared, pale and furious. "Get in the car, Alina," he ordered. "This boy's going to pay for what he did." Tears mixed with the mud on her face. "He didn't do anything wrong," she screamed, but her words drowned in the chaos of flashing cameras and shouting reporters. Within hours, every news channel in the city carried the same headline: "Homeless. Teen accused of kidnapping billionaire's daughter." Social media erupted. Some called him a monster, others pitied him. But only one truth existed for Alina: he was innocent. That night she watched the news from her room, her eyes swollen from crying. Her father's company issued a statement thanking the police for the rescue. But the word rescue felt like poison. She looked at the old blanket still draped over her shoulders, the same one he had given her when no one else cared. And in that moment, she made a silent promise. If the world wanted to call him guilty, she would make sure the truth screamed louder than the lies. Asterisk. The sun rose softly over the ashes of what was once a billionaire's mansion. Smoke still drifted in the air. But among the ruins stood two souls who had survived the unimaginable: Maya, the poor girl who risked everything, and Ethan, the billionaire's son whose life she saved. The news of the fire spread across the world like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know the same thing: who was the mysterious girl seen carrying the unconscious boy out of the flames? Reporters camped outside hospitals, cameras waited, and social media flooded with the phrase, "the girl from the fire." But Maya didn't care about fame. She stood quietly in the hospital corridor, wearing borrowed clothes, her face still marked by soot. Inside the room, Ethan was awake now, weak but alive. When he saw her through the glass window, tears filled his eyes. The last thing he remembered was the heat, the darkness, and then her hands pulling him out. When Maya entered, he whispered, "You saved me." She smiled faintly. Anyone would have, but deep inside she knew not everyone would. Have run into a burning mansion for someone they didn't know? Days later, Ethan's father, the billionaire himself, requested to meet her. The same man who once drove her father out of work years ago. Maya walked into his office, her heart pounding but her spirit unbroken. He looked at her for a long moment, humbled by guilt and gratitude. "You saved my son," he said quietly, "and I owe you more than I can ever repay." Maya looked him in the eyes, then maybe repay it by never looking down on someone poor again. Those words struck him harder than any loss could. And from that day, something changed. Not just for him, but for everyone who heard Maya's story. Months passed. The new mansion was being built. But this time with a difference. A part of it turned into a community shelter, built in Maya's name. Ethan and Maya stayed friends, their bond deeper than words could express. He often told people, "She didn't just save my life, she taught me what life really means." The final shot, Maya stands near the rebuilt mansion, now a symbol of unity. Children from poor families play in the courtyard, laughter filling the air. Ethan walks beside her, both smiling, both changed forever. A quote fades onto the screen. Sometimes life burns everything, just to light the path to who you're meant to be. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and comment. Never judge a heart by its wealth. Let's spread Maya's courage to the world. Because sometimes the smallest hands do the biggest miracles.